everybody. Welcome to another episode of Steel Roses podcast. This podcast is created for women by women. You're hearing Jenny today, and I have my co-host Melissa with me.
Hello, hello.
Welcome, everybody. I know. How excited am I that Melissa is on all these recordings? Can't even tell you.
We're finally working out logistics. There was like a 2-month period where it was just not.
It was rough. It was rough.
Like either, like we would start trying to record on like Mondays, and like either Jenny's kids were running interference, my daughter was running interference, our jobs were running interference, or like it was always something. And by Friday, we're like, all right, we give up. Like we
well, you know what the other thing is too, like, you know what we also did? We tried really hard to pivot. So we were like, all right, let's try mornings. And then that wasn't like working out. And then we're like, well, maybe like Melissa's driving to work. Like maybe I can grab her in the car. But then that got technical like challenges were like bad. And then it was like, okay, well, what if I take lunch and then you take lunch and then we do it then? And so we kept trying to like
make it
happen. Because I mean, truth be told, like this podcast is like my light of creativity. Like I love it because of that, because it's a part of my life that I get to be creative and talk about things that I like to talk about, and I get to do all this work on the side that I really enjoy. And that's why I'm like, I think we both try so hard at this because it is a nice creative outlet
outside of our day-to-day, daily tasks. I think it just helps us sort of get into that creative space and get into, I don't know, more positive. At least for me, it's like a positive outlook. It's like it drums up all like these ambitions I have after we record or something.
It does. Well, all right. So there's like a theory around that. There's a method to it. Like there's a reason for that. It's because when you spend time engaging with people that are, not to toot my own horn, but when you spend time engaging with people that are a light, or people that are positive, people that are high vibration, people that are, working on meditating and being in alignment and all these buzzwords that I've said over the course of this podcast. When you spend time with people like that, when you walk away from engaging with them, you feel high almost. If like, and not high, like, but like you feel, you guys know what I mean? You get this like rush, like Melissa just said, of like energy, because you've been brought into this light, and it's like exciting to be able to feel that.
No, agreed. Very well put.
And also, I want to plug that Melissa is incredibly creative, and I was shocked when she did creative elements of our podcast. Like she like totally blew my mind, and then I felt bad about myself because I work in this stuff all the time. Nevertheless,
we digress.
Digress a little bit. This podcast episode is actually going to be airing right after my 40th birthday, so I'm excited.
I literally cannot believe we used to talk. It's just a little bit surreal, because literally, like, I have a very distinct memory of what, I guess I was like 16 years old, and like you were turning 20, and we were like, gosh, in like 10 years we're gonna be, approaching our 30s, and like it's just so funny when we look back. I'm like, where did that time go?
I know. I think occasionally I like fantasize about how on Saturdays we used to like go shopping.
Oh my gosh. Like, do you remember the amount of money we used to drop and be like, oh, like,
I don't even want to talk about how much money I used to go to the store, and I had no problem.
I think you were worse than me at one point.
Oh, it was bad. I don't know. Did I need that many sweaters? No, I didn't need a turtleneck in every color, but I had one in every color. I was obscene. I had my stepdaughter
she had
actually
a closet full of Michael Kors. Like, I used to rate it.
My stepdaughter actually was teasing me the other day because she was like, "Man, when you guys moved, like when me and her father moved in together, I had around 20-ish, 25 pairs of shoes, like just in the closet." And I remember she would take them out and look at them and be like, "Oh my God, I wish my foot was bigger so I could fit into your shoe." Because she's a little thing. And it's comical because now I have, I have one pair of boots that I'm holding on to that were Coach, really beautiful Coach boots. They need to be repaired. So I'm holding on to them because they're classics. I have one fancy pair of boots that I met my husband in. So they're staying with me for the rest of my life because I just can't get rid of those. But for the most part, I wear my Uggs and I wear sneakers pretty much all the time. Like that's like it's terrible.
Which
Again,
is hilarious because I can't tell you her, like Jenny and my mother were the two
oh
women
yeah.
in my life that like literally it was like Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the
Oh
City. Like
God, I used to love
closet
Vogue.
full of
Oh my
food.
God, forget about it. I would spend my whole Sunday reading Vogue. We digressed again. Anyway, it is surreal to be turning 40. And I'm going to say this because obviously this, all right, as we're recording this, I'm turning 40 in 4 days.
My gosh, yes. Mhm.
I'm so excited. Now, I don't know. I think I told this story on one of our other podcast episodes, but when I was turning 39, I didn't realize I was turning 39. I thought I was turning 38. And then my husband had to like gently tell me, like, no, you're turning 39. And then I had to do the math because I guess I'm at the age where I just totally missed it. So my whole 39th year, this past year, um, it all of a sudden took on a life of its own. And I mean that in the most positive way possible because turning 40 to me is not accomplishment is not the right word. And Melissa, help me if you think of a better word for me, but it feels like a new beginning. And so as I wrapped up my 30s, I made a really wild effort to shift myself and my family into a whole different realm of possibility because turning 40 to me was like a new beginning.
Exactly. It's funny because we were going to record about a different topic originally, and I said to Jenny, I was like, not for nothing, but by the time this airs, your 40th birthday will have passed. And I was like, you've approached it in such a positive manner. I think it's something to talk about because most of the time, I think, societal pressures or expectations or whatever, I feel like for women, two of the bigger milestones are turning 30. And admittedly, like I did kind of freak out when
Oh,
I
I
turned.
freaked out when I turned 30. I freaked out. Like I freaked out when I turned 30.
And I think 40 is the other one where women, they're meant to feel like, oh, I'm turning 40. Like it's this, it has this negative connotation. And I I was so pleasantly surprised and then secondly impressed by the way that Jenny, her perspective and her outlook about turning 40 and like how it was serving more as an opportunity versus something
Be upset
to
about.
hide or
Lie
shy away
about.
from or
You know,
any of that kind of stuff.
I will say this over the past few years, I've had that. I've never been great around my birthdays. I've always actually kind of not liked my birthdays. And this kind of dates back to like way back, being disappointed consistently on my birthdays. So for a long time, I sort of like gave up on it and was like, I don't want to celebrate it. I don't even want to acknowledge the day. Like I used to work on my birthday. Like I didn't care. I was like, I don't even want to be any part of it. Like whatever. I like adamantly didn't want to acknowledge it. And over time, that has shifted. And it's a little weird to say this, but I think it changed after I had kids and I started looking at the years, not so much as oh no, I'm getting older. I started looking at the years more so as value. and being able to being able to bring all of this knowledge to the table, and actually being able to like look at what I've accomplished here. And children, I wouldn't call them an accomplishment, but having that experience of having kids and then kind of taking a step back and looking at my life, I have taken stock many, many times and said to myself, like, well, Jenny, you've been able to come so far. Look at what you've accomplished. You've hit all the goals. Like, you've done everything that you wanted to do. And now you're like reaching this precipice. So over the course of these couple of years, I've looked at my years as value versus like, oh, I'm getting older. Oh, life is over. Like, I don't see that at all anymore. Now I'm like, I want to hit the gym harder. I want to eat healthier. I want to be around until I'm 100. I have all these dreams that I still want to accomplish. Think of it this way too. And this is the other way that I was thinking about it. When you're in your 20s or late teens, you're put into all these really forced situations where it's like, you need to choose a major right away. You need to choose a career path right away. You're forced into making all of these major life decisions when you haven't even lived a life yet. When you're turning 30 and 40 and 50, you have a half of a life to pull off of and say, like, I've had this experience. Let me do things smarter now. Like my little guy likes to tell me, Mommy, let's work smarter, not harder. And it's that coming to the table with experience is like huge. It's such a huge thing. So for me, this past year, it was really more of a, and it doesn't have to happen before a big birthday like this, but for me, this is kind of how it rolled out. But this past year, I made it a point in some ways to prioritize myself. I took that Abundance Ever After course. I would have never done that before. I would have never prioritized that before because it felt like such a splurge. It was expensive as hell, but it has impacted my life 10 times over. I could never quantify it. Like, there's no way I would be where we are if I didn't have that course. And the blessings that we've had in the past few months are a direct relation to that. And now turning 40, all I can see, all I can feel is this high vibration of something big is coming. And it sounds nuts, but this whole year, all I've been doing is looking forward to my 40th birthday and being like, and now it's going to start. And now life is going to start. And that sounds so crazy, but it's true. It's just how I've been going at it versus, the other route of pretending I'm still 38.
Well, and I think, there's something with, and again, it's not like we're turning 70, but again, there's something with getting older that I think after maybe 35, because 35 hit a little bit differently for me. Mm-hmm. And I just think that as you age, you take things less for granted. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because
I just feel like that's like a real thing.
Yeah, 100%, 110%. Like the older you get, the more you kind of have an appreciation for things.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I appreciate so much more so now when I stand up and my back doesn't hurt because I'm always so stiff. That's like on the funnier side, but like there's more stuff to it. Like, I appreciate, even if I took like earlier this evening, I took like 5 minutes and read with one of my kids. I deeply appreciate being able to do that because I'm not always able to do that. Like, there's moments and then outside of children, like, there's a deeper appreciation for company culture as I get older. Like, the older that I get,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, money is always a driving factor for me. Melissa and I joke about this all the time because I'm like, money is like my defining thing. Like, you tell me how much you're going to give me and I'll let you know how much I'm going to give you. But it's beyond that though. Culture is massive. Do you really, like being able to be in an atmosphere and working with people that respect each other and respect my opinion and look at me as an expert in my industry, like that's massive. It's huge to be able to have that and to work with people that really value each other and care about each other. And I don't mean in like a stupid bullshit way, like, oh, we're all a family. I mean, like, truly let me look you out so you're not working after hours. That's really what I mean. So you have such a better appreciation for a lot of things the older that you get. It sounds so like I feel like such an old
I
fart.
used to hate, didn't you? I used to hate when my parents or other people would tell me things like that. I was like, oh, it's such infantilizing. Like I can't have an appreciation for something now, or like that I don't realize what's important and what's not. But as cliche and old as it makes it sound, I think that's like spot on. Like you just realize like how valuable your time is. And I think as you get older, your responsibilities change. Um, if you choose to have children, if you choose to get married, like it's it the priorities in your life have to change, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to, like do things differently than you used to. And when I look back on my 20s now, I'm like, damn, I really did. And I was a pretty mature 20-year-old, but even
Yeah.
then, I'm like, I had no clue. Like, if I knew now, um, if I could have told myself what I know now, my 20s would have looked very differently. But I guess you have to,
I was gonna say,
people always say that. So
would
you
you have
have to
believed
go through.
yourself? That's the other thing too, because if you really think about it, all the experiences that you've experienced, good and bad, to date, and this is for everybody listening, really like take a minute here. Everything you have experienced up until now has made you into the person that you are. All of the good stuff has really lifted you up. The bad stuff may have dragged you down a little bit, but you learned from it. That's really the key thing there, is that like even if something's really shitty, you can still learn from it. You know what you're learning? How not to be shitty. Like that's literally what it is. If you have a bad situation on your hands, now you know how to not be in a bad situation again. You're going to learn
Yeah.
from it. Hopefully,
And
you're learning from it.
how not to pass down generational traumas, like
Right, right.
things like that.
Exactly, but it's just, really like think about it. And also, I encourage everybody. This is something else that I've been doing because my husband, like Chris, my husband is always like, you get everything you want. And I don't mean like material things. He's like, you get everything you want. You have in your mind a particular vision and you always get it. He's like, look at your life. Like you've literally, and not that I've had the easiest of life. Everybody has things in their past that like, have been struggles. But the big milestone markers for me was a strong career, which I've gotten. I got my husband, which I had to work really hard for. And I have my kids and I have my house. Like there's things that were like big milestone markers for me that like I didn't think they were going to happen at one point. Like there were times before we had kids that my husband and I didn't think we were going to make it to anything. So there's so much there. But if you take a minute right now and don't focus on the negative stuff, but focus on the things, the times where you were uplifted, you will start to see a pattern, because I see a pattern in my life. You will see a definitive pattern of like, okay, well, I was feeling good here, or like I was surrounding myself with positive people here, or I was doing positive things here. And you'll see the trajectory will shift in those moments. But then if you pull back and you start to hang out with toxic people, or you're paying more attention to the negative things, then you're going to see your flow go into a different direction. And that's what this past year has taught me, how important it is to pay attention to how you're feeling about like all the situations that you're in. On our previous podcast, we talked about, not conforming, for holidays or whatever. Same in life. Don't conform to stuff just because you feel like you should be doing something a certain way. You don't have to do anything anyway. You have to do it the way you feel most comfortable.
No, agreed. I think that's huge. I think, and I think the other thing is not even intentionally. I think as women, as mothers, we get bogged down by the everyday, day-to-day life responsibilities, and sometimes you don't even realize it. Like, you're just having a tough week, and that the negativity that can come from that week can spill into the next week. And then
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, you're kind of in a slump. And you that's happened to me where I'm like, it'll be, 2 weeks of just like me wanting to take a deep breath, and I'll look back and I'll be like, oh wow, like I didn't even realize that I kind of let myself slide into more of a negative perspective or a negative moment. And then it's crazy, but if you're able to sort of snap out of that and focus on the positive, or at least, this is something that I always say, because people are like, oh my god, it's exhausting to be happy 24/7. The point is not to pretend or force yourself to be happy, but the way I'm able to shift out of that is by focusing, maybe, and even if you're not focusing completely, like, oh, it's hard when when you're having challenging things happening, how can you always focus on the positive? Even if you can't focus always on the positive, focus on the things that you can change,
Mm-hmm.
and focus on carving out a, a step by step, one task at a time. Okay, how can I make an impact on changing this for the better? And that's what I found, is that it's not just, oh, I have to be happy go lucky all the time, but it's like,
No.
okay, if you're having a tough moment, instead of focusing on the things that you can't change or things that are out of your control, why not focus on the things that you can make an impact on, and that ultimately in the long run will help turn the situation around. And that's what I found. And if you take it one task, I'm talking like, I don't know, let's just say a day-to-day stressor, cooking. Okay, so if you take that simple task, right, it sounds like, oh well, why are you spending so much time thinking? But it's like, if you take that simple task and it's like, okay, how can I make it easier in life, whether it's ordering groceries and getting them delivered to the house, whether that's prepping, carving out time and saying to your partner, okay, I need 2 hours on Sunday night so that I can prep out meals for the rest of the week. You know what I mean? Like, it's taking
Mm-hmm.
those little things. And again, it sounds so stupid. And maybe just, it sounds like, oh, well, that's common sense, but you'll be surprised how much those little things add up. And before you know it, that tough week that you had is all of a sudden you're in a good moment, and you're pushing that forward into your week, whether it's every Monday or whatever, whenever you're resetting. And before you know it, you've completely turned the situation around.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you interested in podcasting but not sure where to start? My name is Jenny Benitez, and I'm here to help guide you through your podcast launch and maintenance. Check out the link in the episode description for Podcasting Unboxed, your comprehensive startup guide. I am very excited to work with you. You said a few things. Well, one thing in particular I wanted to point out. Well, not a couple of things. You said a lot of stuff in there that was like really important. So, number one, I am absolutely not happy all the time. And Melissa knows that because I count down the moments I'm pissed off. So there's no way anyone is happy all the time. Even like my guru, like Kathy Heller, like she is not happy all the time. She shared something on one of her module learnings that I was doing where she was talking about self-sabotage, and she does it to herself. This is a woman who's a millionaire, like she self-made millionaire, literally self-made millionaire. She has imposter syndrome and she has this problem and she's trying to tackle it. So there is no happy all the time. Like there isn't. You are a real person, and it's okay. Even if you're like trying to start out with like, manifesting and meditating and all that stuff, it is okay. And it is totally acceptable to have crappy feelings. Now, the second thing is, like Melissa said something like, well, it's exhausting to be happy all the time. It is, but also not in the sense, like it is in the sense that if you're used to constantly being stressed out, or if you're used to constantly being pissed off, or if you're used to constantly complaining, you basically are self-sabotaging yourself, because you're getting, every time we get really stressed out, we get cortisol cortisol is released into our brains and into our bodies, and you basically get addicted to cortisol. So when you're trying to be happy and it feels wrong, or if you're in a really good mood and it feels like off and you feel like, oh, well, this can't be, and you start questioning it or whatever, that's basically your body looking for that hit of cortisol to like simmer down. And you basically have to detox yourself from it. A method that I used to use when I first started manifesting, like years ago, I'm talking 15 years ago, when I first started doing it, anytime I would start to spin out, I would look at something for a few minutes and remind myself of something positive. So when Chris and I started dating, it was like a picture of me and him. It's like things, or I would look at my vision board and focus on the things on there, and it would sort of pull me out of that spiral that I was going down. That's like a game changer. And it's something easy that everyone can do because we have smartphones. So you literally, if you're pissed off at work and you're starting to spiral and you're about to have like a really crappy afternoon, take a minute and focus a few minutes on something positive that will bring you a little bit of light. Because the further down a negative path you go, Melissa's right, like the worse it's going to get. And you could lose your whole week to being negative. I learned deeply all of these things in the past year, my 39th year, game changer.
You're like, it will never be the same again.
Never
40s
gonna be the
better
same
watch
again.
out.
Oh my God, 40s are I'm gonna kick ass in my 40s. I'm so excited. I really don't understand. And I had told my husband this. I'm like, I don't really get it. Like when women are like ashamed to be 40, or I'm like, this is awesome. I will say this, there is numerology and symbolism around the number 40, and it actually is supposed to be always growing and evolving. It can represent new beginnings. It represents change. Like there's a lot to the number 40 that's used across biblical and history and religions and all this stuff. The number 40 actually pops up quite a bit. I didn't do a ton of research into it. I just had heard that on one of my classes. So just relaying that, but yeah, I'm super pumped. I'm super excited about it. And for all of you listening, I mean, I'm excited for you guys to be on this journey with me, because it's going to be really cool, and I want to take you all with me.
I think that's great. Like it just, like I said before, it's just refreshing the perspective that you take in. And I also think even just culturally, when we look at 40 now, I mean, 40 is not what it used to be, even for our parents' generation. People, I mean, this is not the path that you're taking right now, but people are having, kids in their 40s. You know what I mean? People are, a lot of people in our generation focused solely on their career. Maybe now they're getting to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm getting married or deciding to have kids or whatever the case is. 40 is not what it used to be, I think. And I think we're starting to see that change as it plays out, well, it's really funny. Even when you go to, I don't know, we went to a concert the other week, and I was like, my gosh, the performer was like turning 50, and I was like, they look like, it's just incredible if you compare what 40 looks like now versus
Oh no,
when
you
our
can't.
you know what I mean? It's just a very
No,
different
it's a whole different.
outlook.
You're honestly, yeah, and you know what's like one of the cool things that I've noticed, a shift. There's been a greater shift towards healthy lifestyles, healthy living, working out. Like that's all stuff that actually keeps you younger longer. So, I mean, there's so much to it. There's a whole, you don't have to, just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to lean into it. You don't have to lean into it. Like, yeah, I have pains and aches, and my back likes to give out every once in a while, and my feet aren't in great, like I have all this crap or whatever, and like endometriosis, whatever. Like I have a bunch of shit too, but like at the end of the day, I'm not like leaning into sickness. I'm not leaning into that. I'm like, no, you know what? Like I'm okay. Get treatment, go to the doctor, go to the chiropractor. We can keep moving forward. Like there's so much more life to be lived. And I plan on living a lot of it for a very long time. So that's like my spiel on turning 40. I'm very excited for it. And I'm very happy that you're all here with me as I turn 40. It's an amazing blessing doing this podcast.
I love it. And I want to end with a little thing that I found on Bazaar. And it's just like an opinion piece, but it's written by Mira Jacob. And she said, because this is exactly what she was writing on, about turning 40. And she said, can you imagine what we'd be capable of if we didn't feel bad about aging? If we marched toward our 40s with the joy of a population who understood we were about to feel totally fine about being ourselves. The 40s, as it turns out, can be goddamn brilliant. They
Hell
can be
yeah.
full of they can be full of being your least cringing self, trying the things that you were once scared to fail at, giving up on the shit that never felt great in the first place, and understanding that no one knows you better than you what you should be able to do with your mind, time, life, and body. They can be the moment you realize that anyone who tells you otherwise has a vested interest in keeping you small and scared. Not to brag, but my 40s have been the decade I finally published my first book and lost my ability to see most of the pores on my face due to astigmatism. And not to keep bragging, but they are also the decade I drew a second book, found a haircut that makes my head not look like toast, and perfected the art of leaving conversations that don't deserve me. So I think when I came across this, I was like, this is how Jenny is literally approaching her 40s. And I think we should make it a movement. So
all
our listeners out there that are, I think when I'm approaching 40, which will be in a few years, this is exactly the perspective that I want to take, because I think women are finding more empowerment in aging, empowerment, especially when it comes to 40. And it just seems like 40, especially for millennials, is the age where some women are really grounding themselves and have really figured out who they are.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I couldn't have said any of that any better. Like in a nutshell, yes, all of it. And I love it. And that was an amazing, amazing way to sum all that up, because that's exactly how I've been getting up to this moment and gearing up to turning 40. I am just so excited for it.
And note to our listeners, if anyone actually wants to read that whole article in full, it's called A Message to Millennials About to Turn 40.
And we can actually link you to the article in the description. So Melissa, just make sure you send it over to me.
Yeah, I'll send that over to you. And I love the subtext, because it was, society has a vested interest in telling women that aging is terrible. Don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So love it.
I love that. I love it. We are growing and getting smarter and wiser as we go. And I'm incredibly grateful for being able to do this podcast and to be doing it with Melissa. Like, this is like the best thing that could be happening. And it's just truly amazing. So thank you all for listening.
So we wish you a very early happy birthday, Jenny. And thanks for changing our minds about 40.
Yeah, absolutely. 40 and fabulous. Thanks, everybody.
So we'll be back next week. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you have any tidbits, any things that you want to give feedback on, our email is steelrosedpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. And so thank you for tuning in every week.
Yep. Take care.